Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you in the land of Egypt before you. Have your father and your brothers the best property in your country, let them live in a land of Goshen. Moreover, if you know that some of them are particularly competent, put them in charge of my livestock. So we get to the point where we're like, okay, these guys have come down, yay for Pharaoh. What does he see? Opportunity. Right? If you're half as good as what Joseph is, okay, we're going to prosper. So let's set them up in a really good space and let him look after my stuff and see what happens. Obviously, he's thinking multiplication. And John's thinking, why did I hang this? I'm going to change the basic. Right? Joseph then brought in Yaakov, his father. Notice, here again, it's the difference between physical realities and spiritual ones. He brings in Yaakov, his father, and presented him to Pharaoh, and Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. Now you got to stop there, yeah? Ask that question.
Now,
Isn't that interesting? Right? I think it's because of the reputation of Joseph. Remember, this is like, we can see that God is with him, right? And if this is daddy, hopefully how much more so? Right? So we see something interesting, but I want you just to kind of put this in your timeline of thinking. How many years of famine do we have? It's supposed to be 7, right? Okay? Keep that in the back of your mind. Pharaoh asked Yaakov, how old are you? Now, when you come in, he asks the brothers, what's your occupation? He looks at Jacob and he goes, how old are you? It's a little odd, isn't it? Why would Pharaoh be worrying about how old you are? You're going to outlive the famine? Egyptians, Egyptians they were kind of focused on afterlife and long life, right? So he looks at him and he goes, how old are you? Which is probably a little bit rude to ask. And Jacob replied, the time of my stay on earth has been 130 years. So at the time he comes down into Egypt, he's 130 years old. Now this is a really, really old person compared to the rest of humanity. So Pharaoh looking at this kind of marvels, I think. And he says, they have seen few and difficult, fewer than the years of my ancestors lived. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and left his presence. Blesses him twice. He also found a place for his father and his brothers, and he gave them property in the land of Egypt, in the best region of the country, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had ordered. Isn't it interesting? When they go down into Egypt, they get the best of everything. They are greeted well. Pharaoh says, welcome, stay here, you're welcome. Fast forward a little while later, they're still in Goshen, they're still in the best land, but now you're slaves, now you work, now I want to get rid of you. Right? Different Pharaoh, different heart condition. Joseph provided food for his father, his brothers, and all his father's household, taking full care of them, even the youngest. There was no food anywhere, for the famine was very severe, so that they both, Egypt and Canaan, grew weak from hunger. Joseph collected all the money there was in Egypt and Canaan in exchange for the grain they bought, and put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. When all the money in Egypt had been spent, and likewise in Canaan, all the Egyptians approached Joseph and said, give us something to eat, even though we have no money. Why should we die before your eyes? Joseph replied, give me your livestock, and if you don't have money, I will give you food in exchange for your livestock. So they brought Joseph their livestock, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for their horses, their flocks, their cattle, and donkeys. All that year, he provided them with food in exchange for their livestock. Okay, so this part of this cycle of selling off your livestock to be able to be fed, looks like it took a year. Yeah?
Stephen,
Yes.
maybe a stupid question, but
Not at all.
when Pharaoh blesses them,
When Jacob blesses Pharaoh.
oh sorry, I'm not the wrong way around.
No worries.
So why would he bless Pharaoh then?
This is again, one of those realities that you have a very different Pharaoh. I think they recognized that Joseph had God with him, and because of this is daddy, and this is where the lineage steps up. This is where Joseph gets it from. And Joseph, if he is this powerful and God is this much with him, how much more so probably Father? Okay, so I think he recognizes because what God has done through Joseph. Right? But then remember also, you're dealing with a covenantal reality. What did God promise Abraham about all the nations of the earth? They would be blessed through him, right? So it is part of a covenant response where you have, at this point, one of the most powerful men on earth that are sitting over there recognizing that spiritual reality, even though he doesn't probably understand it. Okay.
Just grateful to Pharaoh for elevating him and allowing him to come to Gosh.
Well, I think there would be a bit of gratification. But I mean, if you're dealing with a God reality, I think there's something in it here as well. There's definitely, I mean, you looked after my son, you've lifted him up, and Pharaoh's like, well, your son is amazing, and God is with him, and there definitely would be that reality, but I think there's something else here.
Because and then to get Pharaoh, you start worshiping.
100%. I think when God takes someone and puts them in a place, it's for the express purpose to God to make manifest his presence with that person to prove the fact that God is God. There is very much a case where he'll put you in a very dark place, but then he will bless you because of it, or they will watch you maybe go through the most difficult things when everybody else in the company is panicking and you're sitting there singing hymns and you're like, well, what can I do? God's got this. And they will go, what is wrong with you? Everybody else is stressing. Where's this? What's that? What's going on? How are we going to deal with this? And you're looking, it's like, I don't know, but God's got me. You know, there's something in it. It's one of my favorite passages in Torah. It's coming up in the next chapter. But when you see this reality, we have to understand that as we walk into those places, and we would very much like, I think as Christians or believers or Torah observant believers or whatever, we like the idea of creating a community life, right? It's about family. So what we want to do is we have a tendency to want to isolate. Come together. This is a safe place. And synagogue is supposed to be. A place of fellowship is supposed to be a community place. Remember when we say synagogue, all we mean is community hall, right? When we come together, this is supposed to be a place where you can build each other up, you can learn, you can have each other backs, you can pray for each other, you can grow. This is about cultivating a family unit to help us work as a body, learn about each other, learn to love one another, and to fulfill the mitzvot. It's very difficult to do that by yourself through a screen. You know, I'll just stay at home and I'll watch live stream. How are you going to learn to love anybody? You're not. Part of the instruction of becoming a disciple of Christ is to love one another. You're not going to do that online 50 miles away all the time. But when you get put into situations where you have to learn to deal with people, you have to learn to navigate those things, you start to grow. Because you realize, well, hang on a second, maybe I'm being a little bit pedantic about something. Maybe there's a bigger picture here, right? But we get to the place where we want to go, okay, well, this is our safe space here. And that's it. And then we want to take that safe place to our community. So if we can build a good God-fearing community on a specific piece of land, and that's our community. And then, well, our workplaces, well, wouldn't it be nice if all of them were just believers and we all worked for each other? That would be amazing. Here's the problem. You're not sharing the light in dark places. All right, for me, the biggest example of this was the Essene community that it was set in Qumran. Okay, the guys who did the Dead Sea Scrolls. They separated themselves completely because of the hypocrisy that was going on. And yes, there was lots of hypocrisy, but they weren't much better. They got to the place where they started taking Torah and tearing it apart. They also had their own traditions. They also had their own cultural narratives. They also decided, listen, it's going to be all male. We're going to focus just on this. This is how we're going to be, and this is what we're going to do. And here's the issue I have. God comes down, squeezes himself into time and space. Yeshua gets born. He visits every synagogue in the Galilee. He was baptized in the Jordan in the desert. We never hear him once having an interaction with an Essene. Pharisees, Sadducees, Zealots, Hasmoneans. He's in the thick of it. The Essene community isolated to themselves to be a place of preparing the way for the king. That's what they thought. Sons of light fighting against the sons of darkness never seemed to have an interaction with Yeshua. There's a point where we become so isolated in our thinking, in our physicality, where we kind of separate ourselves, that we're no good for the kingdom. Basically, you take a lamp and you hide it under a bushel. I mean, people knew they were there. But there's a point. When Yeshua came, he stuck himself on a highway. Sat in Capernaum, sat with sinners and tax collectors. Right? There is a point when you get put in a position that is uncomfortable. It's been uncomfortable for Joseph. It was uncomfortable for Jacob, and then when they were near Shechem. There are places when you walk into the land of Canaan, it's going to be uncomfortable for Joshua, and then when they're in that land, it's going to be uncomfortable for, and again, disobedience sometimes. But when you get put as a land bridge between three continents, you are going to have an impact with the world. They are going to come through your ranks. Do not shut your light or shut the border, because if you don't make an impact, Mazel tov, thank God you're saved, and you're working out your salvation. But when you get to the place where you want to hide your salvation up with other people, believers, you're not reaching anybody. I want you to take what you learn here and apply it in a dying world that is desperate for truth. I want you to go have random conversations with people at the supermarket. I want you to go have conversations with people in the gyms. I want you to go have conversations with people at the markets. They are so busy looking for God. God says, I'm sending you. Right? There is a point where Goshen needs to be separate. But the placement is so that we can have salvation. You understand the difference? We can build a community, but we can also be sent out in community. And if anybody's going to have your back, it should be people in this room. People in play. People in Benoni. And we say, hey, look, we're having a really rough time. We need prayer. Hey, guys, look, there's things that we want to accomplish here. Can anybody help? It's supposed to learn to work as the body. We cannot and must not get into the place that we become so closed off that I cannot sit down with a sinner or a tax collector. How am I going to teach them about God's love and grace and mercy? I know exactly who you are. You understand who I am, yes. Now, I'll tell you a funny interaction I had with a Wimmy at gym. He understands, I believe the Bible, I teach it, and the one day, I don't know, they forget. I'm a friendly guy, or at least I try to be if I get to know you. Now, walking around, it's really odd for me, right? Because I'm like part introverted, part talk too much. So when you come in and you're walking around, and he walks up to me, and he's in his 70s. And I'm training with a youngster, he's 30. And this guy is also asking me questions, and he's not where we are. And he's a nice guy. I train with him almost every day. And we're sitting in the interaction, and this old buddy comes up to us very slowly, and he goes, I want to tell you a dirty joke. And I looked at him and I go, remember who you're talking to? And he smiled and he go, yes, I forgot. And he turned around and walked away. Yeah? He needed a reminder that, hang on a second, this is what I stand for. But I'm going to be there with him, showing him that I accept him, showing him that I appreciate him, that I will greet him, but I don't agree with his life's choices. You have an opportunity to be a light, to show them what salvation looks like. If they knew what I was and they knew who I am now, they would be very confused. We have to be able to give them that testimony. We have to be able to be comfortable enough in yourself, in the truth, that you can stand in the midst of them and you can go, listen, this is me. Me and God, we're a package deal. I don't have to hide away from that. I don't have to create a Christian community for that. It's fantastic if you do and you want to have the family, but I'm saying don't lose sight of your purpose. The disciples were trained and they were sent out. You think it's a coincidence that you might be finding yourself in the situation where you are? God knows what he's doing. And sometimes in the midst of your darkness, that's what I like to call on-the-job training. It's the most uncomfortable, and you really don't know what you're doing. You're fumbling over your feet, you're stumbling over yourself. You don't really understand how God could be putting you in this situation, but yet here you are. I go through stages like that just being in play. And it's like, well, you just have to take a deep breath, realize God doesn't make mistakes. He put you in that position for a reason. So now, Father, what do I need to do while I'm here? Joseph, one guy in a nation of pagans. Now the family's coming in. Remember, we're dysfunctional, we're broken. We just found out that the dude we sold off to slavery is still alive, and he has a lot of authority. And this becomes the light, this becomes the testimony. So just because we're not 400% all the time in community doesn't mean that it's broken. We get stuck some in portions of Acts where we just see everybody was one heart, one mind, one purpose, and that was it. They don't talk about all the niggles to get to that reality. They don't talk about the difficulties of going through communities and personalities and so on, but we have to be willing to be able to work together, learn together, grow together. Because ultimately, if the body doesn't want to be part of the other body and the toe doesn't want to touch the foot, you're going to have a really, really, very unhappy toe. It's going to slowly die off and they think they're fine, but you are not meant to be an island. It's just not the way it's done. I think live stream and recordings and that is a fantastic tool to reach people. It's very difficult to raise disciples through a screen. You have to get to the place where sitting around a table, asking the hard questions, having those discussions when we go, hey, listen, you know what? Something is not right. Something is wrong. It gives us opportunity to learn forgiveness, to learn compassion, to learn mercy, to learn love, not the phileo version. Scratch my back, I scratch yours, we're okay. But you also have to then be able to go to God and you have to be able to say, okay, Father, here we are, use us. All right? Verse 18. When that year was over, they approached Joseph again and said to him, we won't hide from my lord. All our money is spent, and the herds of our livestock belong to my lord. We have nothing left. As my lord can see, that our bodies and our land, see our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be enslaved to Pharaoh. But also give us seed to plant so that we can stay alive and not die, and so that the land won't become barren. So Joseph acquired all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh as one by one the Egyptians sold their fields because the famine weighed on them so severely. Thus the land became the property of Pharaoh. As for the people, he reduced them to serfdom city by city, from one end of Egypt's territory to the other. Only the priest's land did he not acquire, because the priests were entitled to provisions from Pharaoh, and they ate from what Pharaoh provided them. Therefore, they did not sell the land. Then Joseph said to the people, as of today, I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh. Here is the seed for you to sow in the land. When harvest time comes, you are to give 20% to Pharaoh. 80% will be yours to keep, to seed, to plant in the fields, as well as for your food and for that of your households and your little ones. Okay? So, let's just chase down a couple of verses. Someone find Genesis 45, verse 6 for me. Yeah, have you got it?
2 years now the scarcity of food has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there is neither plowing nor harvesting.
Okay, so 2 years of famine. When they go and fetch them, they say, right, everybody's run out, we've had 2 years, right? Then they come down. Then we read in 47, verse 17, they sold all that they have for food for that year, right? So if we would say 2 years of famine, let's give it a year for travel time and extras. Now that year they've been reduced to serfdom. And this year, he's looking at what? The people and their land. More or less? Maybe 5, maybe 6 at most. And then he gives them seed to sow. Where's the 7 years? Yeah, but remember, he said you won't even be able to plow that it's not so. So it seems to me that it should be at the end of 7 years, then we can start to plow, then we're only harvesting in the 8th, if that, right? Maybe even 9th. But it's an interesting timeline. I'm not saying it's definite, but it looks to me like when Jacob and them come down and he blesses Pharaoh, it seems to cut the famine slightly shorter. So he blesses him twice. Maybe that's an allusion to 5 years of famine instead of 7. I don't know. The Bible isn't exactly clear. But what we do kind of see is that as it lays out from the timeline, it looks as if that year, and then it's just before he starts to give them stuff to sow again so that they can have. If you want to write the timeline down, Genesis 45, verse 6 tells them it's going to be they have had 2 years of famine. We've got Genesis 47, verses 17 and 18. Talk about them selling out for that year. And in verse 23, they talk about, here's the stuff that you're going to do to sow. Okay? So it's something for you to chew on, kick it about. Let me know what you think. All right? It says, they replied, verse 25, you have saved our lives, so if it pleases my Lord, we will be Pharaoh's slaves. Joseph made it a law for the country of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should have 20%. Only the property belonging to the priests did not become Pharaoh's. Israel lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. They acquired possessions in it and were productive, and their numbers multiplied greatly. Came in at 130, and that was it. I can die now. I've seen your face. Everything's good. And he lives for 17 years more. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. Thus, Yaakov lived to be 147 years old. The time came when Israel was approaching death. So he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "If you truly love me, please put your hand under my thigh." Remember what that means? Covenant talk, right? It's not really the thigh, but it was that important. The last time we kind of heard that was who? Abraham and Eliezer. It says, "I want you to go and fetch a bride." This is covenant keeping and establishment. He says, "Put your hand under my thigh and pledge that out of consideration for me, you will not bury me in Egypt. Rather, when I sleep with my fathers, you are to carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried." Cave of Machpelah. That's where I want to be. I want to be in the land of Canaan. He's alluding to that territory. He replied, "I will do as you have said." And he said, "Swear it to me." And he swore it. Then Israel bowed down at the head of his bed. A while later, someone told Joseph his father was ill, and he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Yeah. No, Israel bowed down to him. That's an important point. Right? Why did he bow down to him? Right, the dreams that he had, that his mother and his Israel bowed down to Joseph. Yeah. Okay. Fulfillment of the dream, yes. Okay. Will we and your mother bow down to you? Right? Thank you for stopping me. Okay. A while later, someone told Joseph that his father was ill, so he took with him Manasseh and Ephraim. Jacob was told, "Here comes your son Joseph." Israel gathered his strength and he sat up. Now look at it again, Israel and Israel. Jacob said to Joseph, "El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and he blessed me, saying to me, I will make you fruitful and numerous. I will make you a group of peoples. I will give this land to your descendants to possess forever. Now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be as much mine as Reuben and Shimon are. The children born to you after them will be yours, but for the purpose of inheritance, they are to be counted with their older brothers." Okay? You guys obviously know, like, traditional elements is like when we do a blessing on our sons on Shabbat. We will pray the prayer, "May the Lord make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." Okay, this is the reason why. May you make your sons like Ephraim and Manasseh. They were lifted up into an inheritance they had no right. Think about it. It's supposed to be split up between the 12. Right? 12 brothers. Now all of a sudden there's a 14-point share. But the majority, and then as the patriarch of the family, is going to fall to who? Joseph. Right? So it's almost as if he's getting that double portion. Right? So Joseph, again, it seems to be he's getting this firstborn blessing. Yeah? Okay? This is why when we have territories in split and Naaman, you will see territory for Ephraim and Manasseh amongst the others of Israel. He says, "Now as for me, when I came from Padam, Rachel died suddenly as we were traveling through the land of Canaan, while we were still some distance from Ephrat, so I buried her there on the way to Ephrat, also known as Bethlehem." Then Israel noticed Joseph's sons and asked, "Who are these?" Joseph answered his father, "They are my sons, whom God has given me here." Jacob replied, "I want you to bring them to me so that I can bless them." Now Israel's eyes were dim with age, so he could not see. Sound familiar? Just like Daddy. Right? It's sort of like these moments where the Torah captures these cycles and patterns, that it's like, I'm not only going to show you the promises that I'm going to carry forward in different situations, it's almost like they repeat that same cycle to reaffirm that truth. Joseph brought his sons near him, and he kissed them and he embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see you again, but God has allowed me to see your children too. Joseph brought them out from between his legs, and he prostrated himself on the ground. Then Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel, at Israel's left hand, and Manasseh to his left hand toward Israel's right hand. So he lines up his sons according to birthright. Manasseh will go to Israel's right hand and Ephraim to Israel's left. Okay? Right hand, strongest side, receives the firstborn blessing. Okay? And he brought them near to him, but Israel put out his hand and he laid his hand on the head of the younger one, Ephraim, and put his left hand on the head of Manasseh. He intentionally crossed his hands, even though Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces. The God in whose presence my fathers Avram and Yitzhak lived, the God who has been my own shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who rescued me from all harm, bless these boys. Listen carefully. May they remember who I am and what I stand for. Now, if you just left me there, I would have been dead happy. His entire life, his prayer, hinged on this moment. Father, may you remember who I am and what I stood for. What is he saying? It's 147 years, with all the negotiations, with all the trickery, with all of the stuff that I got wrong. Father, when it clicked, I stood for you. I stand for you, and let everybody know it. May they remember who I am and what I stand for, and likewise my fathers, Avram and Yitzhak, who they were and what they stood for. And may they grow in a teeming multitudes of the earth. If that's a testimony you can leave behind, the end of it all, that may you remember what I stood for. That they would be able to look back and say there was one person or one couple who put that flag in the ground and stood for God. In the midst of difficulties, in the midst of the world's craziness, that they didn't lose sight of who they were. Well, let me say it this way, who they belonged to.
We know that when Israel
Mm-hmm.
blesses the two sons, he actually makes the sign of the child by crossing over his hands. Not very, very significant.
You mean the child?
He makes the sign of the child. He crossed his hands over. And he blessed them instead of doing it like that. He went like that or like that, and he did it. But that is an undeniable symbol of the last letter of the alphabet. And Yeshua said, I'm the alphabet now. So that just stands out, that jumps out at me as being very symbolic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in cases of establishing covenants, yeah. Right? You want to be able to, when it's all said and done, be able to remind your kids and your kids' kids, and hopefully your kids' kids' kids, that when it's all said and done, that banner still sticks. It says, verse 17, when Joseph saw that his father was laying his right hand on Ephraim's head, it displeased him, and he lifted up his father's hands to remove it from Ephraim's head and place it instead on Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, don't do it this way, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know that, my son, I know it. His eyes were dim, and yet he saw. He too will become a people, and he too will be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will grow into many nations. Do you have a different translation there in many nations?
The completeness of the nation.
The fullness of the nations?
Do with the fact that Jacob had
I think it carries on with the covenant picture. Right? If you look at Jacob and Esau, who became Isaac and Ishmael, right? We have this sort of covenant reality where that which should be isn't. Okay? And then we get to this place of this is what God wants to do. He wants to do something that's almost it's not normal to the culture that you're dealing with. Right? It's so completely opposite to the way we would understand things and the way we would do things. And this kingdom is just, it goes against the grain, in other words. He's the firstborn, he should have the blessing. Just like Ishmael should have got the blessing, just like Esau should have got the blessing. And God goes, I have a plan for this one. Ultimately, it points again then to further to someone like David. Okay? You look like you want to say something, Kim?
No, there is a kind of picture in my head where Gentiles are also accepted in.
Very good. There are people that look at it and then they go, becoming the fullness of the nations, becoming the fullness of the Goyim or the Gentiles, that is saying, oh, okay, that the way we've been engrafted in is according to that promise. All right? It's they see you as someone, again, and it's an identification marker for someone when you come into Israel and you say you're a Christian, but you keep the feasts. Then they go, no, you can't be Christian. Because to them, what they understood about Christianity is all Catholicism. Right? They don't understand that the first believers were Jewish. It was something where we kept the feast and we kept Torah, and we're just coming back to that very base. But this reality of shifting is that when you're coming in and you're keeping Shabbat, they go, that's a fulfillment of promise.
My be completeness of the nation. When you jump over to Romans 7:25, it also ends with until the completeness of the nation has come in. So it seems to correlate with both the end and
Very much.
it's three.
Yeah. And this is where someone like Paul, being a rabbi of rabbis, would sit down and go, oh yeah, makes perfect sense. Remes after remes after remes. Okay. It says, then he added this blessing on them. That day Israel will speak of you in their own blessing by saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. So although we have a traditional element when you bless your children, bless your sons, it's based on that scripture. Thus he put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. Israel then said to Joseph, you see that I am dying, but God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your ancestors. Moreover, I am giving you a Shechem, or giving you some would render that. What does your translation say? To give you a Shechem or to give you Shechem? Okay, if it's CJB, it's a Shechem. Anything else?
One.
Right. Okay, that's what Shechem could mean: a shoulder, a ridge, a share, or the city. Right? More than your brothers. I captured it from the Emory with my sword and with my bow. All right, so he says, okay, well, he could be talking about the city of Shechem, and then sword and bow might be a slight reference to two very angry brothers who used the circumcision problem to annihilate the men of the city. But it also could just be alluding to the fact that he's giving him a double portion. Okay? All right, any questions so far? All right, are we all still awake? Sammy, you sure you want me to carry on? Yep. Thumbs up. All right. This next chapter, we're not gonna have time to unpack. All right. When you're looking at Genesis 49, we're looking at a list of blessings. Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways or a couple of points that you guys we're gonna look at this. You're gonna look at it first as the individual chapter. Right? Then I want you to cross-references or parallel this with Deuteronomy 33. Stick your fingers there and go to Deuteronomy 33 and tell me what Deuteronomy 33 is about.
Thank you. This is the basic of most of the commandments God spoke over the people of Israel before the living.
Israel blessing, right. So we have the blessing of Israel, as in the 12 sons. And then we have the blessing of Israel from Moshe, where we talk about the 12 tribes. Okay? And it's an interesting order of things. Remember, sometimes I told you when you look at the list of names, the way they sort out their tribes, they do it in different order. Okay? And then a lot of the times we go, yes, there's sometimes we look at things like in Revelation 7. Revelation 7, you'll see a list for the 144,000. A lot of people will make a note that there's a tribe that's missing. 12,000 from the tribe, 12,000 from the tribe, and Dan is omitted. Dan's just not there. And we go, why is Dan not there? Normal answer?
Because he assimilated.
Not assimilation.
He never went to the war.
He set up the North Territory, but what did he do?
Assimilated into the
Not assimilated.
he
Think of Jeroboam.
worshipped the gold.
Oh, he set up one golden calf at Bethel, the other one in.
Dan.
When we go to Israel, I can take you to a place, I can take you to the ancient city of Laish, to Dan, and I can show you exactly where that golden calf stood. They found it. And you can stand in that territory and I can show you the exact replica that they made. They did a copy of the tabernacle in sections and they put it on a high place where the altar would have stood. And you would have worshipped the golden calf in Israel, in the northernmost point. You know what's quite scary about that reality? Is in the same site, you go back a little ways and you go down. There's the oldest gate, city gate that they have. Right? It's called the Mud Gate. That mud gate was where Abraham went through to go fetch Lot. And when he came back and he met Melchizedek, he went through that territory. Some people believe that when he came from Mesopotamia, it's possible that he would have come through that side. Other people believe it might be the Rosh Hashanah side, but possible that he came through that gate to come in. Either way, Avram was running through that gate, we know, at least one occasion. Yeah, you have the father, the patriarch who establishes covenant, and yeah, you're busy making your own way of worship. They worship God. They set up their own temple. They changed the priesthood. And they established that so that the people wouldn't have to go down to Jerusalem to go and celebrate. Okay? So we go. Obviously, Dan allowed this to happen, and it doesn't exist. I'll submit to you, once you look at Deuteronomy 33, you'll see someone else is up there. I'm not going to tell. Last one you're going to look at, and I've got lists like this for days, guys, is look at Ezekiel, I think it's Ezekiel 48. Yep, Ezekiel 48. This is, we get to Ezekiel 48, you're talking about, from what we understand, millennial kingdom. And there is a millennial kingdom inheritance. And I want you to see that list. Okay, you guys all understand when I say millennial kingdom? When Yeshua comes and he reigns for 1,000 years, believe it's a literal 1,000 years. And then the nations will be regathered, the tribes will be regathered, the territory will be set up, and he makes allotment for them. See which tribes are listed. Okay. Allotment, portion, basically, dis jou stukkie grond, dis jou stukkie grond, that one. Okay,
Joshua, nothing.
he does. Look, if you guys really want to, okay, for your notes, if you want to write this down, Genesis 29 talks about the natural birth order. Genesis 46, no, that can't be right. Leave Genesis 46 out for now. Genesis 49, the blessing of Jacob. Oh, obviously. Genesis 46 is there. How they entered in, when it gives the family order of how they went down into Egypt. Exodus chapter 1, again, gives another list of entering Egypt. Numbers chapter 1, from verse 1 to 15, talks about the leaders, and that comes in a specific order. From verse 20 to 43, they take up a census. In Numbers chapter 2, it gives you the order of the camp. In Numbers chapter 7, talks about the offerings. Tell me if I'm going too fast. So when they come up and they give offerings for the tabernacle and so on, there's a specific order that comes in. What page nudge? There's an order of marching. I think it's Numbers chapter 10, but you guys will have to check me there. It's unclear here. Order of marching, how they would go out. Numbers 13, there was a list of the spies to represent each tribe. Numbers 26, the second census. Numbers 34, dividing the land. Deuteronomy 27, blessings and curses. Tribes are mentioned. Deuteronomy 33, the second blessing before they go into the promised land. 33, 27. There's 5 more here. Joshua 13 to 22 talks about the allocation of the land. Yeah. Judges chapter 5, the Song of Deborah. Talks about the tribes where Judah and Simeon are not included. Chapter 5. Judges chapter 5. Then you have 1 Chronicles 2. Talks about the genealogies. Zebulun is not there. So 1 Chronicles 2 is the genealogies. 1 Chronicles sorry guys, my handwriting is really bad. I think it's 12 verse 27. It's the officers under David. You just have to check me on that one as well. So the listing of officers under David: Gad, and Asher are omitted in 1 Chronicles 27. Ezekiel 48, which we have, and Revelation 7. Now, if you were to look at every single list, and we play the game, who's there and who's not, you'll find that the Levites are not there a lot, a couple of times, other people have been omitted, and the reality is we can pretty much only speculate why that's the case. What I do find interesting that is if you look at the meaning of the names and the way it plays out, you might be able to look at it and formulate a sentence. And I think specifically with these two, it makes an interesting link. Because this is, again, this tribulation period, and this is at the end of tribulation period. So when Christ comes down and he establishes himself, what is the allotment of land? What is the portion given? And who gets the first one? I find extra interesting. Okay. But that's something for you guys to go and look at. If you guys want to discuss it, if Zander wants to go into it over the next 2 weeks, you're welcome to. But for the first plain sense of what we have to deal with here is we're going to parallel this, and you're going to have to kind of look future, and we're going to go, okay, if this is what he said, what does it mean to them now? And does it have some sort of fulfillment slightly later? Okay? Any questions? All right, let's start the process. How long have we been going?
Our
Okay, just, oh, look at that. We're making good time. It said, then Yaakov called for his sons and said, gather yourselves together and I will tell you what will happen in the time to come, or the Acheret Hayamim. Assemble yourselves and listen, sons of Yaakov. Pay attention to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the first fruits of my manhood. Though superior in vigor and power, you are unstable as water. So your superiority will end because you climbed into your father's bed and defiled it. You climbed onto my concubine's couch. Right? Something that he did. What does it mean to be unstable like water? You take the shape of whatever you're being channeled in. Right? Maybe that's where you got it from. This is not a good thing. It's not Bruce Lee martial arts wisdom here. It's going, you got it wrong. Right? So when I look at you, whatever situation you're going to be, although you're powerful, although you're strong, whatever that situation requires, you fit that mold. And that's a problem. Because you don't stand for anything. Okay? So he was just like one way, 1 second, the next thing. And because he got upset, he climbed the concubine's couch, as it says here, and he lost his firstborn. Okay? Simeon and Levi are brothers related by weapons of violence. Let me not enter their counsel. Let my honor not be connected with their people. For in their anger they killed men, and at their whim they maimed cattle. Cursed be their anger, for it has been fierce. Their fury, for it has been cruel. I will divide them in Yaakov and scatter them in Israel. I will divide them in Yaakov, physical. Scatter them in Israel, spiritual. One of them is divided, one of them is scattered. Simeon and Levi. Who gets separated? Who gets divided? Simeon, right? Remember the territories and the allotments? Judah literally surrounds them. They can't act by themselves anymore. Whatever they do is going to affect Judah, and that's going to keep them in check. Right? That's the physical part of the allotment that we see later. Scatter them in Israel, scatter them like salt, cities of refuge. You want to have territories of their own. Talks about the Levites. Okay? And again, you guys need a reminder of what salt does. Purifies, preserves,
I don't know.
covenant, fertilize, and adds flavor, right? So as they go out, as the Levites get scattered out, they are to preserve. Preserve what? Preserve the word, right? Add flavor, teach you about God. Fertilize, help people grow. What's next? Purify. Purify what? Clean out the land. Remember, you're going to come in and it's all going to be idolatrous and whatever. And covenant. Remember, he will use the idea of the covenant of salt between a covenant of loyalty. You do your job, you lead my people to me, help them, and I will take care of you. Okay? Next one. Judah, your brothers will acknowledge you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down before you. Isn't it interesting that this was the guy who convinced everybody to sell off Yosef? Judah is a lion's cub, my son. Now that should ring Judah. We're dealing with Yeshua. My son. That should sound like Psalm 2. You stand over the prey. He crouches down and stretches like a lion, like a lioness who dares to provoke him. The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs. What psalm is that? 72 plus 12. Find it for me. What talks about a staff when it deals with Yeshua? That's obviously talking about him, right? The scepter will not pass. Staffer? Yeah. Rod of iron. Now, see, this is the part where the homework comes in. When I leave that open-ended, I want you to see when Yeshua, just like when at the baptism, he goes, Psalm 2, this is my son. Oh, you know what? Let me not terrorize you too much. Go to Psalm 110. Let's go to Psalm 110 for a second. Okay, Psalm 110 says, a psalm of David. Adonai says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Adonai will send your powerful scepter or staff out from Sion so that you will rule over your enemies around you. On the day your forces mobilize, your people willingly offer themselves in holy splendor from the womb of the dawn, and the dew of the youth of your youth is yours. Adonai has sworn it, and he will never retract it. You are a Kohen forever, to be compared with Melchizedek. You are like Melchizedek, the king of righteousness. Adonai is at your right hand. He will shatter the kings on the day of his anger. He will pass judgment amongst the nations, filling it with dead bodies. He will shatter heads throughout an extensive territory. He will drink from the stream as he goes on his way. Therefore, he will hold his head high. Sound like someone we might know? When he refers to him as a lion. Revelations 5:5. One of the elders said to me, don't cry. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has won the right to open the scroll and its 7 seals. Right? We have these references, both for us future and referencing past, so that if you understand the blessing, you're going to understand the person. Yeshua literally walking around there, if he said if I understood this correctly, and there's other illusions. I want you guys maybe to chase down just for this one. 2 Samuel 7. You know what? Let's go there quickly. We might have to stop in the midst of this for time's sake, but let's go to 2 Samuel 7. What is 2 Samuel 7 about? Right. What promise is God making David?
Okay.
A tent. Is it just a tent? King. Right? So when we're dealing with a covenant, just like we had a covenant with the Levites, we have individual covenants as well. We have a covenant being established with David. All right? It says here, after the king had been living in his palace a while, and Adonai had given him rest from all his surrounding enemies, the king said to Nathan the prophet, here I'm living in a cedar wood palace, but the ark of God is kept in a tent. Nathan said to the king, go do everything that is on your heart, for Adonai is with you. But that same night, the word of Adonai came to Nathan. Go and tell my servant David that this is what Adonai says. You are going to build me a house to live in. Since the day I brought the people out of Israel, out of Egypt until today, I've never lived in a house. Rather, I have traveled in a tent and a tabernacle. You guys all with me? 2 Samuel 7:7. Everywhere I traveled with all the people of Israel, that I ever speak a word to any of the tribes of Israel, whom I ordered to shepherd my people Israel, asking, why haven't you built me a cedar wood house? Therefore say this to my servant David, that this is what Adonai Tsevaot says. I took you from the sheep yards, from among the sheep, to make you chief over my people of Israel. Isn't that something? Makes me think of that first covenant. I'm the God who set you free from Egypt. I'm the God who picked you from the sheep yards and I made you king. Remember what we said? God is a master of taking you from where he finds you to where you need to be. He prepares you, he places you, he teaches you, he guides you, he lifts you up. You don't have to worry about the rest. You just have to be obedient with your right now. Continue to stay faithful and focused, and he'll do the rest. I have been with you wherever you went. I have destroyed all your enemies ahead of you, and I am making your reputation great, like the reputation of the greatest people on earth. I will assign a place to my people Israel. I will plant them there so that they can live in their own place without being disturbed anymore. The wicked will no longer oppress them, and as they did at the beginning, and as they did from the time I ordered judges to be over my people of Israel. Instead, I will give you rest from all of your enemies. Moreover, Adonai tells you that Adonai will make you a house. When your days come to an end and you sleep with your ancestors, I will establish one of your descendants to succeed you, one of your own flesh and blood, and I will set up his rulership. He will build a house for my name, and I will establish his royal throne forever. So here we have God talking about a promise to David that's not just going to establish his house, his family line, but to establish royalty as a king forever. Where's the king of Judah today? It only works if Yeshua is. Because for more than 2,000 years, when Pilate was in charge, we had the Herods, right? Of Idumean? How does that work? So this kingship that comes in, and long before, he's establishing something so that, again, future implication that this house and this kingdom that he's building is being established by God's hand. It's the kingdom of heaven. So as much as it is a David physical reality, it's a spiritual one when you tie it in with Psalm 2 and Psalm 110. When that one mention in Revelations 5:5, he goes in, it's the Lion from the tribe of Judah. I will be a father for him, and he will be a son for me. If he does something wrong, now this is the shift, I will punish him with a rod and blows. Yeah, he's talking about the physical. Just as everyone gets punished, nevertheless my grace will not leave him, as I took it away from Shaul, whom I removed from before you. Thus your house and your kingdom will be made secure forever before you. Your throne will be set up forever. Nathan told David all these words and described his entire vision. David's response is just as beautiful and humble. He goes, who am I? Moment, isn't it enough that you already chose me? Isn't it enough that you really revealed yourself to me? Isn't it enough that you protected me from lion and bear? You protected me from Goliath. You've given me victory after victory. The fact that you know my name is enough. And God's like, but I'm not done. And there's future prophecies where David's name gets used as almost like an idiom or an expression for Messiah. I'm going to set up David. And David's been dead for a really long time. How's David going to be set up? And you have a sect of people that believe that, oh, that this is David getting resurrected and he will live forever. That's to fulfill those promises. Yeah, but this is the problem, though, is because it's Yeshua is the one who has the right to rule. Yeshua is the one who's going to shepherd his flock. Yeshua is the one that's going to establish it. It's not David on earth and Yeshua in heaven scenario. It's Yeshua coming down and establish it. What we forget is that Hebrew uses the word David as is beloved. This is my son whom I love. In other translations, this is my beloved son. So when the beloved son comes and is establishing his throne, how is it that we establish this forever? He rules forever. We just read the next verse just because I like David's heart. Then David went in, sat before Adonai and said, who am I, Adonai Elohim? Well, that's Adonai Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. And what is my family that has caused you to bring me this far? I would encourage you to read the rest of it. I'm going to leave it there. When you start to tie in these future blessings, these things that look forward, and we look at the covenant establishment and how these things start to connect and form shape and go, there he is. From the very beginning, right through the process of Torah, who are we talking about? The King of Kings. Let's finish up Judah, and then I'll leave the rest with you. So I'm reading from Genesis 49, verse 10. The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, until he comes to whom obedience belongs, or other translations will say, until Shiloh comes. And it is he whom the people will obey, tying his donkey to a vine, his donkey's colt to a choice grapevine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes will be the blood of grapes, his eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Is it that one? Until it comes to whom it belongs. You guys have all something center or something similar? You got enough brain power for one more little link? Go to Ezekiel chapter 21. So we've seen already in that prophecy is about establishing how strong he is and that it will rule and he'll be like David, and these tie in with that scepter and that authority coming out from Zion, Jerusalem being established. In Ezekiel 21, you can mark down verse 27 because that's ultimately where the verse is going to go. Okay? But let's... Yeah, I'm going to read the whole chapter. You guys are just going to have to suffer through it. You get a 2-week break from me, right? You're going to need it. Right? Now listen to the words. If you're reading from a different translation, let's just read from CJB from verse 6, 21 verse 6. Okay? It says, then the word of Adonai came to me, human being, if you're reading from a different translation, it's 21 verse 1. Human being, turn your face towards Jerusalem. Does your what other translations does it say human being? Son of man. Right? I prefer that. You know, the CJB will render in something sometimes. When it says son of man, who are we talking about? Yeshua, remember the prophecy of the son of man is Daniel, right? Daniel chapter 7, I see someone coming in the clouds, someone who looks like the son of man. It's coming with authority and power. It's when he says, I am the son of man, and he claims it, it's a divine title. You should be nervous. He has all authority to judge. Be careful how you treat him, because he's going to hold you to account. Now, Ezekiel here gets called son of man. I think it's an illusion. Okay, he's pointing forward. Says, son of man, turn your face toward Jerusalem. Preach to the sanctuaries and prophesy to the land of Israel. Tell the land of Israel that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you. I will draw my sword from its scabbard and cut off from your righteous and the wicked. Cut you off from the righteous and the wicked. Again, Ezekiel is in a time when Israel and Jerusalem, these guys have been acting wickedly for many, many years. You know, when you type of have in the Kidron Valley, you sacrifice your children and then you go up and you give God a lamb. There is crazy amounts of problems that are going on here. He says, since I am going to rid you both of righteous and evildoers, my sword will also go out of its scabbard against everyone from the Negev to the north. Everyone alive will know that I, Adonai, drew my sword from its scabbard, and it will not be sheathed again. Therefore, son of man, groan bitterly as if your heart would break as they watch. Yeshua's lament over Jerusalem. Then when they ask you, why are you groaning? And you will answer, because of the news, because it's coming. All hearts will melt, all hands hang limp, all spirits faint, and all knees turn to water. Here, it's coming. It will happen, says the Lord. The word of Adonai came to me, son of man, prophesy. Say that Adonai Elohim, or Adonai Yudevave, says to say this. A sword has been sharpened and polished, sharpened in order to slaughter and slaughter, polished to flash like lightning. But how can we rejoice? My son rejects the rod and every other stick. He's disciplined, and Israel refuses to listen. The sword has been given to polish so that it could be wielded. It was sharpened and polished to be placed in the slaughterer's hand. Shout and wail, human being, because it's coming upon my people, upon all the leaders of Israel. They will be victims of the sword along with my people. Strike your thigh in remorse. For a test is coming of what if he rejects the rod again? Then he will cease to exist, says Adonai Elohim. Therefore, human being, son of man, prophesy and clap your hands together. Then the sword will strike twice, 3 times, the sword for victims, the sword for the great slaughter, coming from every direction, so that their hearts will melt and many will stumble and fall. I I have posted the point of the sword at every one of their gates. See how it flashes, sharpened for the kill. Sword slash for the right, slash to the right, destroy to the left. Whichever way your edge is aimed, I too will clap my hands together and satisfy my fury. Adonai has spoken. The word of Adonai came to me. He says, now, son of man, designate 2 roads for the sword of the king of Babel to follow, both coming out of one country. Put up a signpost at the start of the road leading to the city. Make a road so that the sword can come to Rabbah of the people of Ammon and to Judah in fortified Jerusalem. The king of Babel is standing at the fork in the road where fork in the road where the 2 roads separate, about to use divination. He is shaking the arrows, consulting the household gods, and examining the liver. Into his right hand comes the lot for Jerusalem to set up battering rams. Give the order for slaughter. Raise a shout. Set battering rams up against the gates. Build siege ramps and erect watchtowers. The inhabitants will believe this is false divination because of the oaths upon oaths that their false prophets have sworn to the contrary. But it will cause God to remember their guilt and ensure their capture. Therefore, this is what Adonai Elohim says, because you have caused your guilt to be remembered with your misdeeds revealed and the sins in all your actions evident. Since you have been remembered, you will be captured. As for you, you wicked prince of Israel, due to be killed, whose day has come, at all time of final punishment. Here is what Adonai Elohim says. Remove the turban, take off the crown. Everything is being changed. What is low will be raised up, and what was high will be brought low. Ruin, ruin, I will leave it in ruin, such as there has never been, and it will stay that way until the rightful ruler comes. I will give it to him. Until who comes? You see, we have these patterns in the midst of these blessings. And when I heard that lament, I immediately thought of Yeshua lamenting over Jerusalem. Our response as people that are watching people lead to destruction is to lament. When they don't get it and we do, we're supposed to lament. If you only knew what would bring you peace. Wasn't that his heart? There's going to come further destruction. There's going to be tribulation. It is again, are you going to shake off the rod? Will you listen this time? In the midst of that, the Son of Man will be there at the end when judgment comes. It's an interesting tie-in. If I just take a step back and I look at that verse one more time with that very difficult chapter in my brain, you're going to have no idea where I was.
You're going to bring it on the market again,
The judgment is going to be, remember, it's the destruction of Babylon when they came down. This is the reality. When Rome came in, it was the same problem. That's why Yeshua said, when you see them surrounding, flee. Don't, just get out. Right? Because they are not going to care whether you're righteous or unrighteous. They're going to come in and then there's going to be destruction. But listen to this reality when we think of future events. Judah, your brothers will acknowledge you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. My son, you stand over the prey. He crouches down and stretches like a lioness who dares to provoke him. The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, until he comes. to whom it belongs or obedience belongs. And it is he whom the people will obey. And after that, it talks about how he's able to tie his donkey to the vine. That's how strong that vine is going to be. I'm the vine and you're the? We don't have to go far with what Yeshua has already taught us and told us that things are going to be. Everybody happy? We're going to leave it there. You guys can chase down. The rest are not as complicated. But there will be further implications. So as you prepare for homework, as you're reading through it, if you see something or you remember something that sort of ties in with a future event, mark it down. You guys are not going to be recording. You're going to be sitting, having a discussion. You're going to share what you're going to find. And then Sander will lead that as he feels comfortable. Okay? Questions, any thoughts? No? Happy days? Okay, come let's pray. Lucky you get a bit of sun. Father, we just want to thank you again for our family. We thank you, Father, that we can be here. We can just look at your word and we just pray, Father, that you would just give us eyes to see. Father, I pray that you would help us with our heart condition, Father. That we would mourn, Father, for those who just don't know you. Father, that you would give us the opportunities with the right words, Father, to be able to share not only our light, Father, but our testimonies with them. That you would already prepare the heart, Father, so the soil would be ready to receive the seed. We thank you for this opportunity to come together. We thank you for our family. We thank you that you're dealing with each one of us, Father, that you're taking us from where you found us and working in us and through us, Father, to where we need to be. We just thank you for that opportunity. We thank you for your blessing. We just pray that you continue to keep your hand over us. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.